the beginning of this journey was around the time when we passed the 10th, 12th standard exams. We got very good academic results, national merit and special merit scholarships for my brother and I for high academic performance. We thought that our parents would be happy with what our achievement was in the exams, and that they would do not have to pay for our education anymore. Instead, I remember my father called us and said that the nation is investing a lot in you and your education, and this imposes or gives you a responsibility, and I would like that the country get a very high return on the investment that they have made in my children. That's what he told us. And not just the country, but also the people who are less fortunate than what you are. I must confess, I did not quite understand return on investment as a teenager when he told us this story. And I still think I do not understand return on investment the way it is measured today in purely financial monetary terms. Saying that if I put this kind of money in you, what would be my return on investment? Our definition as a social entrepreneur on return of investment is more the kind of impact that we make in the field, the smiles that we bring onto people's faces, the tears that we are able to wipe. So I may be not quite on in the same wavelength as most investors perhaps, but I don't think I want to change my thought process at this time. I was, as a student of engineering, in an environment, in a campus, I think with a very skewed gender ratio. And there we, this kind of a situation and what we were going through as girls on campus in IIT, we thought that, it made us think, and all the time we were thinking, discussing, introspecting about gender aspects, conventional gender stereotypes, and what we are doing to break those stereotypes and what we are going through as women on campus. Some of the experiences, on campus with a very skewed gender ratio, I don't know the number of admiring men on there, and each time trying to create some kind of conversation, some kind of space. But that exposure to that skewed gender ratio, I think, has been with me for a very long time now. And each time I learn to think not just from a social entrepreneur perspective, but also from a gender perspective. And that's why that slide which tells us about the effort that women have to put in as social entrepreneurs. But more important than that, it helped you to evolve coping mechanisms. It helped you to work through very fine nuances of how you learn to cope with people, cope with strangers, and how you learn to manage as you grow older. I think it was inevitable, given my background of parental advice, of engineering education, and my commitment to science, that I choose to work in an area where all these three could be addressed. So I worked in the Indian Institute of Science to design wood-burning stoves, fuel-efficient wood-burning stoves for women in grassroots areas. And I think it is in this stage that I met some of the most inspiring people, who have been with me for a long time. For me, I think the greatest inspiration came from these grassroots women for whom we were working. And we were at that point of time always complaining about our lifestyle, what do we do, etc. So many problems. Those women were living so comfortably and happily with problems, with indebtedness, with drunken husbands, with enormous amount of drudgery, and they had great hope in the future, and they had great aspirations for their children. So I said that if this set of people, if they can be forever so positive, they learned me to be always positive in any given situation. So whenever I feel a little bit low, depressed, I just go off into a village and have these meetings with women and come back totally inspired. The other people who inspired me at that point of time was, and in the Indian Institute of Science campus, there was an environment for socially sensitive science. I remember Professor Amulya Reddy, who was my mentor. He called the scientists, he made an appeal to the scientists to ally with the poor. And then he had these theories about energy, sustainability, etc. he told me at one point of time that no canvas is big enough. And then he asked me to read some of his great speeches, which he gave at various international platforms at different points. So one of the things that he said was, the present is unsustainable, the future is difficult. And so do you want to live in the comfort of an unsustainable present, or do you want to work for a future that is difficult? And at that point of time, again, I think it was decision-making time for me, whether I move from a secure research environment in a prestigious institution, or go and start off something new by myself, and with some like-minded thinkers. That was also the time when my children were very young, and I had been given the option of working part-time. And it was tough to take a call whether I was thinking in terms of starting a non-profit at that time, which we did ultimately. But I think one core, something which completely helped me in my decision making was, I think that my husband, in a moment of weakness, he told me that I will earn and you can spend. And I think that was the most liberating thoughts for me. That the thought that I had to earn was taken away from me, and it opened up to me several opportunities. And that made it so much easier for me to go and say, yes, I think this is what I must do. We had, we looked at, we were always looking at people who can afford to pay, because we had sort of instinctively rejected the whole subsidy mechanism in which government operates. So we developed a whole range of about 14 different types of wood burning stoves for about 10 different industry sectors. We worked with the Areca and the betel nut industry sector in Karnataka. We worked with the jaggery making sector in North Karnataka. We worked in silk reeling sector, herbal medicine in herbal medicine sector in Kerala, rubber band making, textile curing, bleaching, dyeing, etc. So a whole lot of these sectors we worked in, and what we did at that point of time was, perhaps because we were not quite comfortable taking the decision that we should be entrepreneurs ourselves, we transferred technology to a whole lot of grassroots enterprises and helped them to secure, I think a small mini Wilgrow, about 2% of what Wilgrow is doing, or 1%. But we helped them, we raised funds, we helped them to set up their businesses, we helped them with technology transfer, helped them with training, helped them to set up workshops, helped them with marketing. And I think we worked with about 14 such entrepreneurs, I think about 10 years ago. And I'm happy that out of that, 10 of these entrepreneurs continue to do the same work that we had initiated them into, and have diversified and are doing much better than what we had ever expected them to do. So to me, it was at that point of time that yes, I think our technology is robust, and we can do what we thought we should do. And around that time also, I think Tide was getting known internationally as an organization that can do good, robust technology transfer. Their products, their designs are relevant. So we were under enormous pressure to scale up. And people were asking us, what about impact? What about scaling up? So at that point of time, again, we had to go through a phase of intense introspection. I was quite comfortable with the small impact, the small achievement, the grants that we were doing with Tide. It was a niche kind of an NGO, but just the way the situation was changing, the flavor of the month for funding agencies and investors was changing. We realized that a small niche NGO doing small impact, I think it would, its time period would evolve, would close very quickly. We could not have a long-term sustainability for an organization like Tide, which was very technology-focused NGO, and then we had to, the other thing that we were always asked was impact, and we were always told that impact is measured in numbers. So we were at a great disadvantage when we were, reporting impact. Compared to say what somebody who wrote a book, one book written for primary school, very interesting book read by 10,000 children, impact. We have reached out to 10,000 people, but whereas my one product might be reach out to 5-10 people. So we had to find a way by which we could maximize impact. And if we had to maximize impact, we had to scale up. So again, we had to somewhere take a decision that we should think beyond technology transfer, and we should be looking at starting a social enterprise ourselves, because because our mindsets, our aspirations would be different from those of the grassroots NGOs to whom we had transferred information, knowledge, technology. I remember one conversation which I had with Professor Mukunda of the Indian Institute of Science at Chennai Airport. And he asked me, where do you go from here? And I said, I don't know, sir. I'm confused. So then he told me that I think you must start a social enterprise, a company, and aim for rapid replication. The cook stoves, you are able to do good cook stoves, you have a good understanding of people, you have a good understanding of development, and I think you must take the plunge. If you don't, the environment sector, the forests, the people for whom you are designing would be far poorer, and you would have perhaps, failed, and you would live to regret it if you don't start off as a social enterprise. I still told him I don't have that competency. I understand development, I understand technology, I understand management. I've been running an NGO for more than 10 years now, but it's a completely different ballgame, is what I told him. He said, I think you've played your first innings, you've done with parenting, you've done with designing, etc. I think it's time for you to go into the second innings. And he told me that we Indians always do play second innings better than the first innings. And so this is the time for you. You will live to regret it. He also told me it's better to have loved and lost than to have not loved at all. And he was very about those 2 hours. I think at Chennai Airport were decision-making time for me again. Around that same time, I think I was reading a book by Michael Jordan, the basketball biography, where he said that I can accept failure, but I cannot accept not trying. And I think these 2 messages hit me very hard at that point of time. And so I thought, yes, like the turtle, I must stick my neck out and go and venture into uncharted terrain. And that's where I spoke to again Paul and said, I think we're starting a company to look at a rapid replication of wood burning stoves. But again, we said that I would restrict myself initially to the commercial cook stove sector. Canteens, dhabas, messes, roadside places, because these are people who are buying fuel, and for them there is a revenue model which I can propose, and who would where the return on investment as they did it. If they invested 10,000 or 15,000 rupees on my stove, through fuel saving alone, they would be able to pay back in about a year's time. So the revenue model was very strong for this sector. The sector was unserved by innovation, was untouched by anybody coming and asking them about a new product, a new technology. So it was difficult. I remember the first time I approached an investor who is now investing with us. Her name is Emma Caddy from ERM, and now that we are good friends, and she has actually invested in our company. She told me that I was really very amused by your pitch, and it showed that I do not understand anything about raising money, about investments, about business plans, about a company. Then I just asked her, but why did you persist? Why did you persist in talking to me? And finally, why did you invest? And she said, but people told me that you could be trusted, and you have what it takes. So I endured, And now recently, last week, when I met her again, and she just told me that the kind of experiences that you have had, and the kind of information and the sensitivity to social enterprise that you bring, I think we are learning a lot from our investors, who teach us about what we should be investing in, how we should be looking at investments. So that was really good news. That we had transitioned from an NGO to a for-profit company. We had gone through all the processes of market survey, business plan making, negotiating with investors, incorporating a company, registering IP, registering trademark. I don't know it was enormous hard work, and it was work which we are not used to doing. But I think we started off, we did all that. We developed new products. That was the most easy thing for us to do. We developed new products. We got them certified, we got them tested, and I think now for the last 30 months, I think we are running Sustain Tech as a social enterprise. So these are some of the products that we have developed. And since I understood heat transfer, I understood energy, I understood biomass, I understood cooking also very well. I was able to design cook stoves, that meet a particular need. So we realized very quickly that one size does not fit all. So we looked at a tawa stove for making, dosa, roti, akki roti, or these kind of things. A frying stove, a tea stove, and each time we can give up to some level a customized solution for people to meet their needs. It would be convenient for them to use these kind of stoves because it fits into their existing cooking habit, practice, sitting posture, standing posture, etc. So the design of the technology was the least of our problems. But again, market penetration, we've been trying very hard. Somewhere I think we've been succeeding. Somewhere we have yet to succeed. And these are some of the stove users. I think we have now about 1,850 stove users. We have actually raised revenues of about sold stoves worth about 2.5 crore rupees to these people for whom buying a stove at this price was the highest investment decision that they had made. They have backed a new product, they have backed a new company, and sometimes I'm amazed at why they have actually backed this. And sometimes again, we have to keep motivating our team, that you have to do better, you can do better, etc. And being a social entrepreneur, my style of motivation is slightly different from people. By instead of telling them that I will give you an increment, I will give you a higher DA, I will always point out to them the social impact that we have achieved and said that if we can't do it, nobody can. So that is what I keep telling them, and this is the way I think every month I do the small math to energize myself and my team, which is what I'm presenting here. Arrested deforestation of 470 hectares, CO2 emission reduction of about 25,000 tons. Employment generated in Sustaintech itself is 50% years. So one of the things, again, I get back to some of the stories that my father told me as a child. It said that, take responsibility, and he just, and again, if I have to tell somebody again, that should you be doing this, I have got something which one of my professors told to me, and I think I'll just read it out to you. So he said that the most important attribute that we should all be looking for in ourselves is how responsible do I feel for the environment and for the people. So is it my responsibility to make a difference to someone else's life? And if the answer is yes, then you will find the strength, the energy, the resolve, and the courage needed to succeed. So each time I feel a little bit low, I go to all these professors at the Indian Institute of Science who keep inspiring me to go and do this. I think I'll stop.